Good morning. Welcome to Effective Parish Communications. We begin with a prayer from Archbishop Leo Cushley.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone. From St. Paul's letter to the Galatians. We must stop being conceited, provocative, and envious. You should carry each other's troubles and fulfill the law of Christ. How good and how pleasant it is, brothers and sisters dwelling in unity. There the Lord gives his blessing. Let us pray. Lord God, living light of eternal love, grant that always aglow with charity, we may love you above all else and our brethren for your sake with one and the self-same love. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. St. Andrew, pray for us. St. Margaret, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thanks, Your Grace. Welcome again to this webinar. Whether you're a parish volunteer, part of a communications team, or simply passionate about sharing the gospel more effectively, you're in the right place. In the next hour, we'll share insights, guidance, and inspiration to help you communicate with clarity and purpose. My name is Matt. I'm the Communications Director for the Archdiocese of St Andrews and Edinburgh, and let's welcome our guests. We have Colm Flynn from broadcaster and Vatican correspondent for EWTN News, Bishop Frank Dougan of Galloway Diocese, and Elaine Furmage from Being Catholic TV. Good morning, everyone. You can use the Q&A button to submit a question at any time, and also you can share your tips from your parish that work well. Colm Flynn is a Vatican correspondent for EWTN News. He reports from the heart of the Catholic Church in Rome and travels the world sharing human interest stories. He's going to share insights from his work, tell us what makes a good story, and how parishes can better communicate and connect with those they serve. Good morning, Colm.
Good morning, Matthew. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thanks very much. All the way from Rome. Is there a typical day in the life of a Vatican correspondent?
Yes, and by the way, thank you so much for having me. I realize that no one else must have been available or people really let you down, so you came to me. But nevertheless, I'm glad to be here. And thank you to Bishop and Archbishop, to Elaine as well for having me. And actually, as you say, the Vatican correspondent, that is a live shot you're looking at right now of St. Peter's Square. It's a very hot day. The temperatures have been reaching up as far as 37, 38 degrees in the last couple of weeks. But that's the beautiful St. Peter's Basilica, the Apostolic Palace. That's a live shot from Vatican TV. And I've been here for around 6 years, Matthew, covering the Vatican, first covering Pope Francis, of course, and now Pope Leo. And there is no typical day. And when I left New York, where I was living before this, working primarily for the BBC, some of my colleagues and friends said, "Are you sure you want to take this job at the Vatican? I mean, everything's happening here in New York. This is the city that never sleeps. The stories are all here. I mean, what are you going to cover at the Vatican? Will there be enough news?" And, you know, to be honest, I wondered that myself too. I thought, what am I going to be covering at the Vatican every day? And boy, was I in for a surprise, because you have heads of state coming to visit. You have conferences happening all the time. You have the church, of course, involved in geopolitics all over the world through its ambassadors, then through its humanitarian work, the human rights that it helps across Africa, Asia, around the globe. There's never been a dull moment. So there's no typical day. I could be going off to interview, like last week, South African Cardinal Napier from Cape Town, now in Johannesburg, getting a snapshot of what the church is like in South Africa. The next day I could be interviewing Father Hans Zollner about how the church is tackling the abuse crisis and the safeguarding measures. And the next day we could be reporting on what Pope Leo has been doing Castel Gandolfo at the summer residence. So it's always fascinating. It's never quiet. And you know what the amazing thing is, Matthew? People say, oh, the church is irrelevant and it's old-fashioned and it's this and that. The interest in the Vatican, the interest in the church, not just here but around the world, I can tell you, is enormous.
And one of the busiest times you had recently was the conclave. You must have been running off your feet.
Yeah, it was incredible. You can see some of the screen grabs on the screen there, but you know, I was reporting into Australian television, and then we were doing Fox News, CNN, And, you know, it's amazing because some of these networks are ideologically opposed on either end of the spectrum, like Fox and CNN. But one night I'm on with Anderson Cooper talking about the Vatican and the church, and the next night I'm on with Fox News talking about the same thing and trying to give the global perspective, because I've been lucky, Matthew, in that over the past couple of years, we haven't just focused on the church here in Rome, but we've went out to cover the global Catholic Church. So when I was talking to people on, let's say, for example, CNN, and they would sometimes say, well, what about the conservative side? And they would talk always about the American conservative Catholics. And I say, hang on a second, this isn't the American Catholic Church. It's not the Irish Catholic Church or the Scottish one. This is the global Catholic Church. And, you know, it's booming in Africa. It's booming in Asia. So it was just fascinating to be able to go onto those networks and give kind of a global perspective. But you're right, it was such a busy time to cover the passing of Pope Francis, then the waiting period, the period of mourning, and then the election of Pope Leo. And the amazing thing was that my wife, Paula, who works for EWTN, and myself and our team, we actually went to Argentina just before Pope Francis passed away, because I think, like everyone, we thought that he was going to live a bit longer. So we decided to go to Buenos Aires and make this high-end documentary, 1-hour documentary about the man who was Bergoglio, who would become Pope Francis. And we went to the streets where he played as a child. We even interviewed a lady who was his first girlfriend. We talked to the people who worked closely with him when he was the Archbishop. And then 4 days after we came back, he passed away. So I think we were the only reporters in the whole world who, within the space of just a few weeks, were standing at the spot where Pope Francis was born, reporting on his early life, when he went to study for the priesthood, when he went to Cordoba in Buenos Aires, and then we were standing at St. Peter's Basilica reporting on his funeral. So it was an incredible, it was an honor as well to be able to do that.
One of the things that I liked from looking into your stories was this one from Mongolia. So we're going to watch a couple of minutes of this. Let me know if you can't hear the sound. But this is a wee trip that you took ahead of the Pope's visit in 2023.
Half of the population of Mongolia, 1.5 million, live in the capital, Ulaanbaatar. And this is where the Augustina family lives. Jalsa and Sirnarov are both professors at a university, and with their son and daughter, they're showing us some warm Mongolian hospitality. It's traditional?
Traditional food.
They are Catholics, part of the tiny percentage in the country.
I wanted to get closer to God. And the Catholic Church has its own theology and rich history. So it wasn't a random choice that I got baptized as a Roman Catholic.
Was it difficult for you to become a Catholic and embrace the faith when it's not in your culture or your traditions?
A person seeks truth. And what is the truth? My husband, my husband's friends, the priests in the church, they all explain the meaning of truth. So that's why it's easy for us to believe.
When you decided to become Catholics, what was the reaction from your friends and family?
Well, they generally don't say it to our faces, but sometimes we do feel cast out. They say things like, you know, he believes in Jesus. He got brainwashed. They say these things. But it's the belief in Jesus that matters. That's what's important.
Only 1,500 Catholics in Mongolia. That's quite incredible.
Yeah, and what's more incredible, Matthew, is I think I'm wearing the exact same shirt in that clip as I am now, but I do change my shirt sometimes and it does get washed. But that was a fascinating trip because covering Pope Francis, the amazing thing was, as part of my assignment from EWTN, was to go wherever the Pope would go. So although I was crossing my fingers and praying that he would go to Vegas or the Bahamas or somewhere like that, because, you know, everyone needs God, he would pick places like Papua New Guinea or South Sudan or the nation of Iraq, or in that case, Mongolia. And the first thing I do when I get the call is I get my globe out and I say, where is Mongolia? And then I find out it's nestled between Russia and China, and no Catholics in the whole entire country, like 1,000 or 1,200. And it was fascinating because when they gained their independence, or they had liberty and freedom, they allowed other religions to come in. Traditionally, it's Buddhist and shamanism. But some of these different Christian sects come in, and they were, I suppose, a bit like cults. And there was one occasion we found out later in that documentary, or Driver actually told us, that way back when a group of young people, they all took their own lives because they were associated with this Christian cult. And so all the people generally in Mongolia don't see the difference between different denominations of Christianity, including the Catholic Church. So when the Augustinian family converted to Catholicism, his friends think, oh, he's part of one of those dangerous cults. He follows Jesus. He's after being brainwashed. So that was one of the things that Pope Francis, I think, hoped he would do with his trip. It would in some way put a line in the sand and say, look, we're different. This is the Catholic Church with her thousands of years of history and teachings, and we're different. And we're here for the betterment of the people and for the common good, etc., etc. So it was a fascinating time to be there. And one of the many beautiful trips I got to go on before Pope Francis to make that documentary, and then stay there in the country to accompany the Holy Father.
How can parishes then uncover and highlight the human interest stories within their own communities?
Well, you know, it's interesting because sometimes, Matthew, we spend so much money going to places like Mongolia with the TV crew and the flights and the hotels. The production costs are enormous. And sometimes we'll cover a local story in a parish and it will resonate with the audience even more. When I started, when I was 17 working in broadcasting, I started in my local radio station, Clare FM, and the show that I wanted to work on was called Beyond Belief. It was the religious affairs program, 1 hour a week on a Sunday night, run by the parish. And I would go out, I still have it here, with my trusty microphone. This is a Zoom microphone. You may have seen them before. I would recommend anyone to pick them up because you just have them in your backpack. They're so easy to operate. You can record people's stories, whether it's for local radio, now for podcasts. And I would go out in the streets and I would record ordinary people and try and mine those extraordinary stories. And I would think just be open to it because these stories are all around us. Granted, not everyone is a storyteller. But you can identify sometimes when you know the person in your parish who was in some sort of accident, but it was their faith that pulled them through. Something, if your gut tells you this is an interesting story, this is inspiring, then it's something that's worth sharing with people, whether it's in the parish newsletter or a blog on the parish website, or even now when it's becoming more and more easy to do so, making a video with your phone and putting it up on the parish social media.
Absolutely. I mean, I use this still. And it does a trick, and it's all about the narrative and the content, keeping it short and sharp. I saw something on your Twitter, and it was just about, like, while we're talking about equipment, and this is a setup. Can you tell us what this is?
Oh, yeah. This was recently when I was in Maynooth in Ireland. I was giving a talk to the bishops of Ireland, and in the room that they had me staying in, I had to do a voiceover for BBC World Service. And so I bring this with me everywhere. This is, again, the microphone you can see there on the left of the screen. And then also that little device is, again, my Zoom recorder, which acts as a USB interface. So if you want to plug a high quality mic into your laptop, you just go through this device as well. So not only can you use it out in the street to record, but you can use it as a microphone plugged into your laptop as well. But if you come back to me, Matthew, I'll show you where I'm sitting at the moment. Now, this is a bit elaborate because I'm a bit of a nerd, but I have a setup here. That's a live shot, like I said, to the Vatican. But this is my home studio setup.
Wow.
So as I'm talking to you now here, I have my laptop in front of me, which I'm using to connect with you over Zoom. I have a little mixing desk here. You can see where I've got different inputs where I can flick between shots just with the press of a button back to my camera. And then over here, I've got a multi-view so I can see all the different feeds. And here's the audio desk where you can... Now, this is a bit elaborate. The camera's just over here, by the way. But this is what I used during the funeral of Pope Francis and the conclave to link into all these networks, whether it was UTV or BBC, so I could give them a high quality feed. But as you say, Matthew, this is kind of expert level that is not very necessary. I'm using this as a luxury. But even when Pope Francis passed away and I walked outside, the bigger networks like CNN and NBC and BBC, they had their camera crews set up, but I saw a row of maybe 20 reporters for sometimes big networks with their mobile phones on stands, a little light on top of the mobile phone, and they were broadcasting. And I guarantee you, if you set a viewer down and said, you know, which one is using the phone and the camera, if it's set up properly, sometimes it's hard to tell the difference nowadays because these are so good. So you can do a lot with these phones.
What advice do you have for the way we tell compelling stories for a parish then? How do we keep it simple?
This was a mistake that I made when I started off in broadcasting and making shows for RTE, the Irish broadcaster. I would find a great story and I would rush to do it, record as much as I could, and then it became very difficult in what we call post-production and putting it together afterwards. Now I've learned that it's better to go in with a plan. So if you know the person you're going to interview in the parish and you know their story, it's good to have an idea going in how it's going to look in the end. So you might not necessarily want to tell it in chronological order. So if it's someone that survived the war or something like that, are you starting with where they were born and grew up and getting into the army? Or are you starting with that moment? So I remember hearing the bombers overhead. I remember running for cover. That's the moment that will grab people. So knowing when you're going in, what the finished product will often dictate what you record, how much you record, being able to say to them, okay, actually, that's perfect. I have enough of that. What I want to ask you about now. So it'll dictate how you guide them in the interview. So that's something I've learned over time as well, that knowing roughly how you want it to sound or look at the end will help you a lot when you're going in to record it. But apart from that, as Richard Branson would say, just do it. Don't think about it and put it off. If you know someone, go get a little tripod for the camera. If it doesn't work the first time, you go back and do it again and just test it. You learn by doing.
And some parish communicators might have just had this role thrust upon them. So they could do simple things like even just capture a moment like a baptism, taking a picture of that and just to share that sort of human. We need pictures of humans, not buildings or stuff like that.
Yeah, that's you're so right. I keep saying that to my cameraman as well when we go abroad. He gets beautiful wide shots and he gets these incredible vistas. But I keep saying to him, I say, Patrick, close up, close up, close up. Get right into people's faces because those are the emotions. You saw in Mongolia when the little few seconds at the beginning, I was talking about the facts and figures of Mongolia. But we had all these close-ups of beautiful young faces and older faces. You see the real character in the faces. That's what people really connect with. But there was another point I was going to make, but now because I'm rambling so much, I've forgotten about it. It'll come back to me.
That's okay. We'll jump into another question. Is there anything that you wish every parish knew or did better when it comes to communication? Is there something they always do wrong, do you think?
Yes, and before I answer that, the thing that came to me was, for example, we went to Papua New Guinea, Singapore, Indonesia, and East Timor. Pope Francis's longest trip of his entire papacy, covering 4 countries. Again, we went with a crew of a number of people, loads of resources at a huge expense, and the video did very well on YouTube. I think it got a couple of 100,000 views. But on my mobile phone, in one of the locations, I saw a young girl singing, a blind girl who was in this home run by these incredible sisters in the middle of East Timor, singing, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." She was singing it to the sisters. I captured 60 seconds of it on my phone, and what do you think happened?
Yeah.
It got over 3 million views. So this moment that was captured, just 60 seconds with no fancy cameras or editing, captured and uploaded, received a couple of 100% more viewers than our big production. Now, they're both important because they serve maybe different purposes. But for someone who's just started this role, you don't need the big crews and all this equipment I have. You just need to be able to recognize the moment, the baptism, the beautiful moment of the kids, the parents embracing the child, what the faith means to them, an old person at mass coming out, why do you still go after all these years, and something they might say in the moment. And if you capture a lot of them, they might not all be those special moments, but you'll find them in there. You're like looking for nuggets of gold and you upload them, and nice and short and sweet with a beautiful caption as well. And then what was your next question, Matthew, after that? After I'm seeing what I say about chronologically, I'm bringing us all over the place here.
What one thing do you think parishes could do better?
Well, I think parishes do really well, actually, in terms of the resources they have. But, maybe try not to be everything on all platforms. Sometimes I see that, they think we have to be on TikTok and we have to be on Instagram, and maybe not necessarily. Facebook is still, I think, for the people who attend these parishes, is a great platform.
Yeah.
Maybe more video, because video is key at the moment on the internet. Video, the algorithms. So the way all these websites are designed, they push video content over text and sometimes over photographs as well. If you have a little bit of audio, it's good to put an image with it or a piece of video. But I would say, yeah, less information. Like if you were covering a church event, rather than talking about the number of people who are there and this is the 56th time we've had this devotion or something like that, you could have all that in your piece, but maybe again, as we've been talking about, the report opens up with a beautiful character that was there in the church, or a beautiful clip from the sermon or the homily that will make people go, oh, wow, I want to stick with this for the next 2 minutes or so.
Yeah. We're fast running out of time for this wee section, but I wanted to share, you mentioned your wife. This is you working a shift.
Oh, there she is.
People can say that. So
people, don't adjust your sets. You're not watching an episode of Beauty and the Beast. This is really my wife. She's
good stuff. So sometimes she works for EWTN, and you've only been married for, I think, 6 months. Is that correct? Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And we met on the job. She was working for another network here in Rome. And of course, she being the beautiful Latin American reporter, she's from El Salvador, and me being the sweaty, strange Irish guy standing outside the Vatican in the heat, I thought there's no chance. There's no chance this is going to work out. But we dated, we got married. We've been married for 6 months, and now she's been hired by EWTN. So she hosts all of their Vatican coverage for their Latin American network, EWTN Español. So she does all of their Spanish-speaking coverage of the Vatican, and we help each other and we work together, and it's been exciting. I'm late to the game, 37, getting married, but I got there in the end.
Got there, and also you've got a Scottish connection, because I understand this is your uncle based in Motherwell Diocese.
That's right, there he is. That's my wonderful uncle, Father James Flynn. Jim Flynn is known to many of you. He's a Holy Ghost father, and he was in Angola for the best part of 30 years of his life in West Africa, doing incredible work. And we are so proud of him because we know the work the priests do and religious do. Not always easy, especially today. And it really is a life of sacrifice and of giving to others. So we look up to him so much, and he said the wedding, he celebrated the wedding. He just baptized my little niece as well. So it's fantastic. So all my family are still, my dad's from Kerfin and my mom from Wisha. So I've still got loads of family over there as well.
Good stuff. And I'm coming live to you from Motherwell this morning.
There
as
you
well,
go.
So there you go. Colm, thanks very much. Stick around and we'll get to you at the Q&A section towards the end.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A reminder to submit your questions or your own tips on parish communication using the Q&A button. Now, Bishop Frank Dougan of Galloway Diocese has taken on the role of leading the National Office for Communications and Evangelisation. He joins us to share the vision for this important initiative, the role of communications in the mission of evangelisation, and what practical steps parishes and volunteers can take to communicate more effectively. Good morning, Bishop Frank.
Good morning, Matt.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine, except thanks for putting on the really smooth Irishman before me. I'm feeling kind of under pressure here.
Follow that.
Although I'm from Wishaw, so there we are, connection straight away.
There we go. There we go. You released a pastoral letter for Communications Sunday, and at the start you used this quote, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations." That's kind of Catholic communications in a nutshell, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's important that you start with that and keep that in mind. Not just with communications. I think with everything, if you forget your initial purpose and just get drawn into what you're doing and not simply or not why you're doing it, then you might kind of lose your way a little bit. So that I think that has to be the thing that's always in view, because that's the identity of the church, that we're called to be missionary, and we're always called to be preaching the gospel, not just preaching the gospel to the people in front of us, but preaching the gospel to everyone, because everyone has a right to hear it. And if that's the case, then we have a duty to make sure everyone hears it, and there is where communications comes in.
And another quote from the letter, "The best way for someone to encounter Christ is through a person of faith." That means you. So we're talking about communications, but it's the personal encounter one-to-one at your parish.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, even when I was listening to Colm speaking there, and you were saying what's the best way for parish communications to be to me? It's the stories of the people of faith. You know, it's not me. It's the parishioners, especially the older parishioners. Actually, when you hear their stories, and you hear why their faith is so important to them, why it's got them through so many things. If you're able to share their stories, they are the best way to express the faith, not by formal teaching, you know, although that's part of it, not even by formal preaching, but the witness of someone who shows why their faith is so important. And so any communication is about giving people the confidence to preach the gospel. And preaching the gospel can just be saying to somebody at your work, you know, I know you're having a hard day. Do you mind if I say a prayer for you? You know, or is it okay if I light a candle for you? It's that understanding that every single person has a role in communication. Every single person has a role in evangelization. So you don't just limit it to certain people who might be seen as the experts, but it's every Christian is called to go and make disciples of all the nations.
Can you tell us more about the vision behind the National Office for Communications and Evangelisation?
Yeah, don't tell anybody. I'm kind of making this up as I go along. All right. Because it's one of my favorite quotes is G.K. Chesterton, who says, if a thing's worth doing, it's worth doing badly. You know, it's about don't wait until you've got all your ducks in a row, until everything's perfect, but just get started. And the vision is starting with, well, it's what I do as a preach. The first thing I was called to do is to preach the gospel. So I preach the gospel principally in the Eucharist and celebrating Mass and other places. And it's that preaching of the gospel that I do, that we're all called to do, is to then take that into every sphere possible. And to let people know who Christ is. And remembering that as well, that it's not preaching the church, it's preaching Christ. And it's the ultimate end is to ensure that other people have a personal encounter with Christ, that they come to get to know him, not to get to know me, you know, not to get to know you, not even Colm, you know, but to get to know Christ. And so again, it's about what's our first principles. And so the vision is to say we are here to preach Christ. And actually, even the title is kind of a working title for communications and evangelization. It's probably better to say communications for evangelization. So it's not two separate things. It's evangelization comes first, and it's then saying, well, what are the means that we can use in order to fulfill that mission?
So essentially getting the dream team together like a commission?
Yes, and that's where I did this kind of release a video about it early on to say it's not full of much detail yet, full of promise maybe, and so at the moment it's for me to try and work out with others what would be the best way to do that, and it is promoting. You know, it's that thing of saying we have a great message here, and we want to be able to promote that message on our terms. You know, so it's the fact that we control the narrative. If we are producing the content the same way as what Colm's doing with EWTN, you're not relying on other media who will take it and will filter what you're saying. Instead, we are saying, well, we can proclaim this message and on our terms, and so that people can hear the correct message.
The Bishops' Conference of Scotland say those who use social media as part of their church ministry should do so for the purposes of evangelisation and catechesis. And they say all social communications should be underpinned by Christian charity. How important is that when we consider what parishioners put on and what anyone puts on social media?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because we could just want to tell everybody everything. You know, want to say that this is what we're doing and this is great. And that's true, but it's also remembered, so why are you doing it? You know, if you are putting on events that are happening in the parish, if it's to engage people and then want to bring them closer to you, then great. If it's just to celebrate yourself, maybe not so much. You know, and especially that second part, you know, that it should be underpinned by Christian charity. I remember, and this is the kind of thing you sometimes hear different people saying, but I remember it was a few years ago on the radio, it was a Church of Scotland minister who said that the advice he had been given by his mother is that if you're ever going to say something, make sure it's three things: it's true, it's kind, and it's necessary. And if it's not all three of those things, then don't say it. So also there are times when we don't need to say something, and there are times we don't need to speak, and we go back to say, well, do I have to say what I need to say? And will it build up people, and will it bring them closer to Christ?
And there's this one from our own handbook in the Archdiocese of St Andrews in Edinburgh. Ultimate legal responsibility for the content of any website or social media account established by a parish rests with the parish priest. I guess for us that's just the small print, but it's a reminder that it's not. This is not when I post in the Archdiocese. It's not me. And it's not your personal Facebook page to put on your pet subjects. It's for, I know if you put anything bad on it, God forbid, it's the parish priest is going to get ticked off.
I know exactly. Just when you see that gives you the fear, doesn't it? Who gets the legal responsibility? Because they say as becoming a bishop, you suddenly become a trustee, and you think, oh, wait a minute, I am genuinely liable. But maybe liability is about also understanding responsibility. And again, it's this thing. This message I preach isn't me, and it's not the parish. It's going back to Christ. And who are the experts? We're all experts in different ways. I'm not an expert in communication, but I am an expert in preaching the gospel. So and so should the parish priest be. And so that it makes sense then to say, remember, then he should be the point of reference for parish communication, because he should be the one to be able to say, is this appropriate? Is this correct? Or maybe at times to say, well, this shouldn't go out.
Yeah, and can digital encounters still lead to real personal encounters with Christ?
They can, and they have to. We have to be careful not to just talk about virtual church or something like that, or saying that here is the place in which you encounter Christ. Yeah, we encounter Christ in so many different ways, but we're an incarnational church. Christ came in person amongst us and walked amongst us. We're a sacramental church, and where are the encounters? The encounters are physical encounters through the sacraments, and so that's the end we want to bring people to. Using social media is a way to reach out, and different media, way to reach out to people who at first might not find it so easy to come into a church, because you have to remember a church is a difficult place to come into as a stranger. How welcoming are our churches? I know we always say we're welcoming, yeah, but are we? And so the first place that someone can maybe put their toe in the water is through digital media and other media to have a look in, but that has to then progress to the face-to-face encounter with a Christian, and then ultimately the face-to-face encounter with Christ.
Bishop Frank, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Being Catholic TV is Scotland's Catholic television channel. Elaine Furmage is the executive producer based at St Augustine's in Coatbridge, and we're going to explore what it's like running a Catholic TV channel and what parishes and volunteers can learn from her experience to enhance their own communication efforts. Good morning, Elaine.
Morning, Matt. How are you?
I'm good, thanks very much. Tell us a wee bit about Being Catholic TV and your role there.
So Being Catholic TV is now a UK-based channel. Started off just as a wee parish thing, but it was born from COVID during the pandemic. It was a time when the churches were closed and nobody could physically attend Mass. And then from there, we started live streaming daily Mass and devotions such as the Angelus, Divine Mercy Chaplet, Stations Across, alongside lots of other things. And as the sanctions were starting to get lifted, we knew there was a congregation there of sick and housebound who were still unable to physically attend the church. So we continued to live stream Mass daily, and now what began as a simple live stream project is now evolved into a full 24/7 Catholic TV service that's available on Freeview, Amazon, Roku, and it's just about reaching out to those who can't attend, but also even things like my dad watches Mass from work every day,
Wow,
so it's
yeah.
not saying don't come to Mass because you're watching online, you're still encouraging people to come, but you don't realise how many people are now tuning in every day just because they can, whereas it would have been limited before. And then from there, we've had our own app developed that people can use for catch-up, and also now moved on to our own documentaries like This is Medjugorje, and then more recently the assisted dying that we worked with the Catholic Parliamentary Office on.
Yeah, and you're on social media and you're on TikTok, and I noticed that this TikTok has over like a million views. That's incredible. It's such a simple idea. How did you come up with this?
So it was actually a trend that was on TikTok at the time, and I just thought, I'll give it a go. Nobody's done this one yet, and it was not long after Pope Francis had died. So grabbed some photos from each year and literally just put them in, put the date on, the year it was taken. And it got a lot of traction. I didn't think it would get that much traction. And then you see that 3.4 million people have viewed it. But, but people actually connected with it. They remember, they had this, I don't know, they just had a connection with the video. I don't know why, but it's just a simple wee thing to do. It's just pictures. Again, it's just 10, 13 photos put together. and people really liked it.
Yeah. So speaking about parish communications, where you're based at St Augustine's and you work there for the parish as well, I can imagine you do a lot of parish communications. Have you got any advice for volunteers or clergy who are maybe trying to improve their communications?
Yeah, just look at other places and what they're doing. You know, my background, I was originally a teacher until 3 years ago, and fell into this during lockdown. And it just started off with a simple video. We were running a project to get food out to the housebound, you know, those who are isolating. I threw together a video, didn't think much of it, and it gained a lot of traction. And then from there, I did it again and kept going and going. And that's where, being Catholic, I kind of fell into that. And then 3 years ago, I left teaching, now communications manager for a Catholic charity. And I'm all self-taught, like nobody's shown me what to do. And it's just looking at what other places were doing. That's how I started. You know, you've got places like Southwark Diocese down in England who have a fantastic Instagram. You know, you just look at what they're doing and you get ideas from what other places are posting. But I would say follow good quality Catholic content across all platforms and just give it a go. I think what Colm was saying, don't rush in and try to fill every social media platform. Start off in one place. You know, Facebook is a great place to start. You'll get to see the traction. You can use your analytics to see how things are going. And quite a lot of time now, you see people are now using more things like on TikTok, they're using Reels, and even that's transferred to YouTube and Facebook. And it's seen a rise in Catholic influencers. So I would recommend that these people are great in what they're doing, but I would focus on more people that you know are run by the church. So I think Michael McGrath has actually asked this question. You know, I would say go to diocesan pages, Vatican News, official Catholic charities and platforms such as EWTN, Word and Fire. You know that the theological underpinning of these places are there. You know, you've got somebody there who's backing them, like Being Catholic TV is run by our parish priest. You know, I can't post anything, like you're saying, Matt, yourself. I can't post anything without him agreeing to it or approving what's going out. So for people who are working parish communications, use these kind of places to get an idea of what you want to do, where you want to start, get ideas from there, and then just start creating your own content. Just do it. You know, use platforms such as Canva. I mean, this is excellent for people who are starting out. There's templates there that are already created. Have a go at it, build on it from there, and then start creating your own templates. You know, just give it a go. Post, and then see how it goes. Analyze your material, and then implement any changes. And that's how I started. I mean, if I look at my very first videos that I put out now, I'm like, wow. You know, I want to delete them. I mean, they're so bad, but they're there and people enjoyed them. That's the thing. And I think Archbishop Cushley spoke about this earlier. You know, we were talking, people enjoyed them. It doesn't have to be polished. People connected with the stuff we're putting out. And it's as simple as just using your phone. Your phone's there. You know, we started off just using a phone. You don't have to have the best of equipment. We started off the exact same and have grown over time. But again, just practice, just give things a go and post simple things. Even things like quite a lot of time now in our parish, we do baptisms. I take photos at every baptism and post that. And that actually gets a lot of traction because people have a connection to that. They're seeing that the church is growing. It's great. And you get a lot of traction. People comment, they congratulate the family. It's just simple wee things like that you want to get out there, that what's going on in your parish life for your church.
I think that summarises it, especially for people who are watching us who do communications for the parish. Tell people what's going on in your parish. You know, if you pick up the newsletter, there's always those stories. You know, Colm talked about picking out those wee human interest stories. And you don't necessarily have to do a video, even that'd be brilliant if you could, but just say this is a picture of so-and-so achievements, baptisms, especially when children are involved. It's great to see all the kids at the primary school saying their prayers at a statue or something like that. So is there any other examples you can think of of parishes that do things well? Or even you talked about, I know I do this, I copy other content thinking that's a great idea. So anything like that you can think of?
You know, you've got, like you're saying, like homilies, you know, I don't know, a lot of churches do live streaming now anyway. Grab the homily and cut it down. Just take little snippets. I've done that quite a lot with Father Kane. Filmed his homily and cut it down into 10, 20-second little snippets. And it's just these wee phrases that people connect with. You know, you don't know who you're reaching when you're posting. We see quite a lot of people now coming to us because they've seen a video or they've been looking at things online and they're joining the RCIA because they're interested. You don't know who you're reaching. You're reaching Catholics, you're reaching the lapsed, and you're also reaching those who are interested in what's going on. They want to see more and want to find out more for themselves.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry to interrupt you there. You're talking about equipment beforehand. No, Colm was, and we talked about, sometimes you just need this, and I would agree that will do the job for you for taking pictures and for doing video. But sometimes what irritates me sometimes is when you see a video and you can't really hear well. And I recommend one of these. It's like a little clip-on mic. It goes into the bottom there, connects, and then you can just click this to yourself. Is that something that you feel strongly about, getting good audio?
yeah, I actually have road mics that we use wherever we go, and you just clip it on. There's a tiny clip on the back. Put it on somebody. I mean, I film Bishop Joe every Sunday for his Sunday reflection, and I just turn up, clip that on his jacket, and it's done. There's no messing about, there's no wires, there's nothing like that. With the stuff that we've got now, the technology we've got now, they're just, look at that, you can go in your back pocket. And then for an extra £10, you've got this that has the road attachment. It's just a simple wee thing that you can use when you're interviewing, and it keeps the wind or whatever else is going on around you, it keeps it nice and clean and crisp. It's just wee things like that, and just researching what you need. Even getting yourself like a tripod, tiny tripod for your phone. Sit it down, keeps it steady, anything like that. It's just, you don't have to, it's not like expensive, the stuff that we're using. This is like way back at the start, but it's simple wee things you find on Amazon, or you might find a shop that's cheap. Just use it.
Yeah. What's not cheap is I think your Being Catholic TV van. I was at your church last night. That's cracking. So use that to get about as well and do bits and bobs. And it's free advertising.
We're very, thanks, Matt. We're actually very fortunate that was donated to us a couple of years ago. And it was excellent because you can just fire all the equipment and, everything's there and everything's set up in it. We actually want to kit it out, so it's just you turn up and it's good to go, but it's a great use. But yeah, that was a donation. That was a great donation though.
Yeah, definitely. So just remind us how people can watch Being Catholic TV and get in touch with your content.
So Being Catholic TV is available on Freeview channel 279, Amazon Fire Stick, Roku TV. We've got an app you can download on iPhone, Android devices, and then you can just visit our website. All our socials are at Being Catholic TV. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy, to have a chat with you or whatever it is you need to support you. I'm in Scotland, I'm nearby, I'm not far, I'm only in Coatbridge. So yeah, I'm happy to help anybody, because I was in a position a lot of people are in now where they're finding that they're landed in it. And from there, I've just found my way in it. It's not really been that I've trained or anything like that in it. I've just found my way in it, and that's where we are today.
Yeah. And you work for the Diocesan Communications Commission. Can you tell us a wee bit about that?
Yeah, so Bishop Toll asked me to go into the commission about 4 years ago, or 3 years or 4 years ago, something like that. And it's a group of volunteers again. We worked together, and the first thing we did was we created the magazine Fontes, which is now the Diocesan magazine that comes out every 2 months. And again, it's just sharing stories from across the diocese, and how we get that material is people send it to us. People send us the photos, they send us the story, and we put it together in the magazine, and it's free. We send it out. We've got our budget as part of communications in the diocese, and every month, myself and another person who is a volunteer as well, we put together a magazine, and we have volunteers that come and collect it for their parish. So it goes direct to their parish, and they're handed out at the end of the month. Yeah. So it's a very simple thing, and from there, I'm now lead of that currently. So there's a lot going on, but again, it's more you want to move into digital as well. We've kind of covered the print side. We didn't have it before in the Diocese of Motherwell. So it's now wanting to create a platform where that we've got content there that's going out, that's planned. And that's another thing that I would recommend. Always have content planned. When Easter is, when Christmas is. All these events are coming up. You know what's going on in your parish. Have everything planned in advance. If you want to have a video of your parish priest talking about, what's coming up, or saying like, why don't you come along? We've got a holy hour on Thursday night. Come along. Get the video filmed the week before, so you've got it ready to go. You're not having to worry about it. I was away on holiday there for 2 weeks, and everything was planned and it was all scheduled. I didn't have to worry about it, and it all went out when it had to go out. And it's keeping people informed, but the content planning has to be there. You have to be prepared for it to go out.
Yeah. You mentioned Bishop told previously, get in touch with you about doing the communications work for the Diocese of Motherwell. But here he is, and this is your brother who was recently ordained. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
So that's Chris, and this is St. Augustine's. When was this? Earlier this month, I understand.
This was in St. Augustine's, the 3rd of July. So yeah, Chris was ordained on that day. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. How's it feel to have a priest as a brother? How's that working out so far?
Oh, well, we went on holiday for 2 weeks there, so you can imagine. We'll have a wee break for a while because we've seen too much of each other. But it was a great day. I mean, I just can't believe how quickly it's gone by, and now we're at this point. I actually texted him this morning about something. He done a homily a while ago, which was, I'm quite critical of what he preaches and tell him. But the homily was excellent, and I said, "Oh, this is coming up soon. I think that homily fits in with that very well. So let's get it filmed." He always says no, but yeah, he's doing it this time. But yeah, it was great, and I'm just happy that he's happy where he is and he's enjoying what he's doing, and that's us now at this point.
Absolutely. Okay, Elaine, thanks very much for joining us. If I can get Bishop Frank and Colm, I think I need to turn Colm's video on. Sorry, Colm, just bear with me. I'll get you back on and we'll get some questions. While I get Colm's video back on, I'll ask a question from Michael McGrath. Can the parish comms team be trusted to make decisions about what content to post without seeking the permission of the parish priest every time? And that's from Michael, and that's for Bishop Frank.
Yeah, it's like anything. When you're managing something, supervising, it doesn't mean you stand at their shoulder all the time. But the parish priest though has to be sure he's confident of the people. So doesn't mean he necessarily has to see the content. But if he's confident of the people that are doing this, but then periodically checking in, I think that it's doing that. But it's not something you hand over and then say it's nothing to do with me. Ultimately, yeah, he's responsible for it, and so he should be.
This is an anonymous question. Have we lost parishioners into church due to streaming Mass? How do we get people back? Elaine, I know you stream Mass. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do to an extent. So my response to that was, in my parish, I constantly post Mass times now and encourage them, and it's a reminder that this is your obligation to attend every week. You physically have to attend Mass. And on that, I also created cards that we hand out to people every so often. So at Christmas, I'm standing at the back of the church and I'm handing these out to everybody that's got the Mass times for every weekend to ensure that we're reaching everybody. Because you see an influx of people coming in at Easter and Christmas. They don't necessarily see every week. So yeah, it's just reminding people that it is their Sunday obligation. So post the Mass times, like looking forward to welcoming you this weekend, looking forward to seeing you, you're saying to them, we can't wait to see you this weekend. So it's kind of the expectations on their part that they will be there.
Yeah. A question for you, Colm, from Michael. It can be difficult to access sources of global church news that are reliable and not pursuing particular agendas. I'm assuming that Colm would recommend EWTN. I don't know if he's being cheeky there, but I don't think he is. But I think is there any other sources apart from EWTN that you would recommend?
For all your reliable global Catholic news, tune in to EWTN 24. No, it's a good question. And, like there has been polarization in the United States, for example, we see it on TV all the time in politics. There has been a kind of split in the Catholic Church. I've seen it here covering the Vatican between the more traditional side, the more progressive side, and you do have media outlets aligning themselves on, one side or the other side. I think you follow as much as you can and then you make up your own mind. I think that's you have a healthy diet of media where you watch something and maybe it comes from one perspective, you watch another thing and maybe it comes from a slightly different perspective, because there are so many different perspectives in the Catholic Church. I wouldn't say there's one to follow. I would say follow EWTN, but don't just follow EWTN. American Magazine is a big outlet as well. The National Catholic Register, which is part of the EWTN group, but that's a print side. Word on Fire, which Elaine mentioned by Bishop Barron, is just so brilliant, so solid. But the great thing is, I think there's so much to follow. This time 10 years ago, there was EWTN and there weren't many others doing it. Now, we have iCatholic in Ireland. There are these different platforms popping up everywhere, because back when Mother Angelica started EWTN in the 80s, I think that the transmission bill was $250,000 a month. That was back in the 80s, just to
Yeah.
stay on air before the cameras. And actually, if I just flick to this camera, when you were talking about the equipment, you see these microphones here that Elaine was holding up, the smaller ones? These are older ones. These cost us £1,000 each to get these back in the day. And now the ones that Elaine held up, you can get for a fraction of the price, much cheaper, and the sound quality is just as good, if not even better. So the good news is now it's more accessible than ever before to get the content out to people. And what Bishop was saying was so true, that he said, we have this amazing message that no one else has, by the way. You're not hearing this from corporations or from secular television or from other places or from the government. It is just the church that has this amazing message. So the technology is there to send out these messages and these stories of inspiration and hope. The message is there, and people like Bishop who can articulate it so well. It's just joining those dots and empowering people and encouraging them to share it. But that long-winded answer, I would say, follow as much as you can.
Yeah. Bishop Frank, is there any content online or podcasts or videos or particular speakers that you're fond of or recommend?
See, I knew you were going to ask me that, because I don't really follow it very much. I'm too busy giving the message.
Yeah, yeah.
But do you know, I'm more just listening to what these guys are saying. I think we've hit a really sweet spot in time for this. But it's not doing anything new. The church has always used whatever means of communications are there at the time. And the secret is not to be afraid of it, not to see it as the enemy, but to say, no, this is the best way for us to do what we have always been doing. We're just doing what we've been doing for 2,000 years, which is preaching Christ. And we say, this is the way we do it.
Yeah.
And sorry to cut across Bishop there as well, but going back to something he was talking about, controlling the narrative. And we don't mean that in a way where we're trying to control a message or trying to give people one side of a story or something. But we all know that, there has been an anti-church kind of bias within many of the mainstream networks, not just in the UK and Ireland, but around the world. And, if there's a negative story coming out of the church, it's headline news. If you have, like we had in Ireland recently in Knock, the consecration of Ireland to Our Lady with thousands of people there, it barely gets a mention. So this isn't the church trying to control the narrative, but this is just trying to show the full picture and show the reality. And in the past, before we had access to all this equipment and being able to share stuff on social media, people were reliant on those networks and local media, whether it was newspapers or local radio, to tell the stories. Whereas now we can say, well, if the main network is not going to cover this, we can cover it. And as Elaine showed, sometimes those videos can get millions of views. So it's a great empowering moment for the church. And I think Father is right in that it's a sweet moment, because people are coming off the back end of this kind of, period of negative stories constantly about the church, negative stories about religious. The church is old-fashioned. You will get your fulfillment from your job or from your social media, from your fame, from your followers. People are searching now, which is why you see apps like the Hallow app doing incredibly well. Series like The Chosen are topping the charts on Amazon. EWTN is growing. There is a hunger for this kind of appetite. I know I'm ranting, but Elaine as well, when I saw she put up those photographs and she said, well, it's very simple, of the christening, people connect with that beauty, a newborn, new life, the beautiful church being shown, and then people can interact and share their comments. All that kind of stuff is just so beautiful to share.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm going to jump in on you now as well. But I think it's true as well, because it's also the fact that, we offer meaning, and people have looked for meaning in different places, and the whole kind of so-called new atheism thing has tried to attack the church, but without putting anything in its place. And people are finding the emptiness of that, and now saying, well, where can we find this meaning? And it's for us to reach out and say, well, we're here, we've always been here, and we'll help you to find that.
Paul asks, what advice for video editing, just like an app on your phone? If I can ask you that, Elaine, first, have you got any choices for that?
I would say on your phone, things like iMovie is free, very easy to use. There's Adobe Premiere Rush, I think it's called as well.
That's
Yeah,
iMovie,
it's so simple to use.
Easy peasy.
Fire it
I use it.
together. You can also do a quick edit on that as well if people are really struggling with it. But it's a very simple thing to use. That's how I started. I've moved into Premiere Pro now, so it's very advanced, a lot to use in it. It's just finding your own feet on it. But again, self-taught, use YouTube, look at videos on there. It tells you what to do. It's very simple, and if you don't understand it, you can go back and watch it again. You know, it's all
Yeah.
there for you online.
Colm.
Yeah, Elaine would know more about that, but I would agree with her that iMovie and Adobe Rush, it's a free app, and Adobe is one of the industry leaders in editing, but this is a very simple app for editing.
Anonymous attendee asks, some parish priests stop live streaming Mass post-COVID, and he goes on and says, what are they afraid of? Bishop Frank?
Well, that's a difficult, because there was never an obligation to do it.
No.
You know, it was about each parish would say, well, we'll use this opportunity, and some did it very well and some chose not to. It was just a particular decision they made. So it's certainly not something you would oblige them to do it. But some might say they don't want to be pushing a situation where if we're doing this, then we're stopping people coming to Mass, because it's almost been presented as an equal option. It's not, and Elaine was correct about that, but I think that's one of those ones where, as a bishop, you'd always say you have to respect the priest on the ground, and he makes that pastoral decision, and it can be frustrating at times, but that's his job. You know.
Yeah. A final question. Where do we find templates? Elaine mentioned these. Maybe that's Canva they're talking about, Elaine.
Yeah, so Canva's free to use. You can get a free account on there, and there's a section called Design at the top that gives you templates. If you're looking for something specific, you can put in Facebook post, Facebook event, Instagram post, and it gives you the exact sizing, and you can look through the designs on there, click the template you want, case of just changing the words on that and then dragging in a photo that you think fits with what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I recommend Canva. And a couple of comments here. We have Galloway News. It's great. Lots of great stories and pictures. So yeah, that's your neck of the woods, Bishop Frank. And someone else says Paisley Diocese has good podcasts to listen to. I do some work with them. That's from Anthony Waterston. So check that out. Paisley Diocese podcast. So have a little look at that as well. We're almost out of time. I just saw you.
Yeah, I just want to show you, Matt, you know, when I travel, I can't bring all of this setup. So I just bring this simple setup here, which is my iPhone, a tiny little stand you can get in any pound shop, a little cheap light, and it does a beautiful job, as you can see there. And you can plug your microphone into that. You can do little live webinars like this, but that's the small little setup, which replaces everything you see behind it. Just that little light on top of the phone and the stand.
It's a great tip. So thanks very much for concluding with that. If you're based in our Archdiocese of St Andrews and Edinburgh, you can find news on our website, and we're also on social media. If you want communications resources, visit the website and our administration and communication. And I'm available if you need help on anything. If there's something we've not covered today, or you're having specific problems or issues, or just want some advice, email me or give me a text or a call on this. That's your lot for today. I just want to thank Colm. I want to thank Bishop Frank, and of course Elaine, who's probably jet lagged returning from America, for joining us this morning. It's been a pleasure. So I appreciate your help, and I wish everyone a happy Saturday and a blessed weekend. Take care.
Thanks, Matthew. Thanks, Bishop. Thanks, Elaine.
Bye.
Thanks, Matt.